icónica urbana no necesariamente concuerda con las opiniones aquí expresadas.
Biblio Chisme.
Biblio Chisme?
Yes, Biblio Chisme. What are you reading?
I'm reading a book about this. And I'm Mo. Hello, Angela. Greetings.
Greetings to you. How are you on this fine evening?
I'm fine. How do you do?
I do so well.
I'm very happy.
I have a question for you that I don't know if it's going to make any sense. So that's always fun. Okay, so do you know what a book blurb is?
Book blurb? Not really.
Okay.
I remember that I talk about a book translated by a Mexican author, translated to English, Fiat Lux.
Yeah.
This poet, Paula Abramo, was asking people on Twitter a few weeks ago if someone would have a blurb, and I was like, what?
See,
so I didn't
destiny. Ask. It's destiny. I'm here to talk to you about the blurb.
Oh.
So basically, it doesn't happen a lot in publishing houses, in most places, in other languages, and I don't see it in books in Spanish very often. Sometimes, but not often. Here in the United States, it's a huge thing, and I rely on it a lot. So basically, a blurb is a little tiny, like, paragraph, a few sentences that somebody says about the book to recommend it. And so when you get a book and it says Roxane Gay, and it always says Roxane Gay because she reads 5,000 books a minute. I don't understand. She's blurbed so many books. But it says Roxane Gay says this is an extraordinary piece of humanity all wrapped up into pages. And then you say, oh, I need to read this if a writer that I like is saying that it's good. And usually they try to get people who are like people who write the same kind of things. So readers of that thing will say, oh, I love that writer, and they say this book is good. And so,
okay.
Yeah.
Like a science fiction writer would be making a blurb for science fiction, for example.
Yeah, and not always. It doesn't always work that way, but especially for things that are very specific, sometimes like a memoir about mental illness. And then somebody else who wrote a memoir about mental illness is like, this is amazing. So it leads you to that. But it also is kind of a trust thing, you know? And it works both ways. Because sometimes if somebody I don't like blurbs a book, I'm like, okay, I can't trust this thing.
Okay.
And so it's not even, it's writers, but it could be reporters. It could be famous people. It could be like, you know, if it's a book, and it doesn't have to be related. It could be like, oh my goodness, you know, this professional athlete is really into diamonds and they blurb this book about diamonds. Whatever. But most of the time it tries to be something by other writers. And
can a normal person, like regular reader, non-famous, non-writer, non-athlete, non-TV celebrity, write a blurb?
Yeah, so the reason I'm mentioning these famous ones is because those are used to promote the books on the book. Here they get...
I can imagine that if a famous person blurbs your book, it's more, it has a bigger effect than if I do.
And they put it on the cover here. That's something I don't see in Spanish language books very often, but they put it on the cover. So if you see the book cover of something and Isabel Allende says this is a great book, I'm going to read it. But a blurb can happen anywhere. So you, Mauricio, can go blurb a book on your blog or on Twitter or on Book Talk or on Instagram. And so that's what a blurb is. So if somebody on Twitter was asking, can you help blurb this? You can write those out and they can put them in their promotional materials. So anybody can do it. It's basically how you feel about the book.
Interesting.
And it's
in a very brief way.
Yeah, in a very brief and positive way, and a descriptive way. But you don't, like, blurbs are not reviews. Blurbs are like a way to promote the book.
I see. A lot of times I get books. For example, I just read an amazing book, which was given to me by an amazing person, that it's called Good Talk. And in a part of the cover, not on the cover, but inside the book or on the back, it has like small sentences that wonderful book. This is completely necessary to be read today. Blah blah blah. Interesting. But for example, when the Times or when a newspaper says wonderful, amazing, great, is that a blurb?
Not necessarily. I mean, no.
I hate those. I hate those that are only like adjectives.
Oh, you know, the other thing that I found that like gives you a clue that it's not necessarily really great. I mean, sometimes it is, but when you find a book and they blurb another one of their books instead of the one you're reading, or praise for this author, like, and they're very short. This author is a new voice of this time. This and this, the other. I'm like, you didn't say anything about the book. You're just talking about the person. So this book must suck. I'm sure that's not true, but to me, it's a red flag. And sometimes they have so many blurbs that they don't fit on the book, so they put them in the first, like, 3 pages.
I think it seems like a really interesting way of promoting a book. At the same time, scary. Like in how many words can I? It's like making a tweet for a book, and that I'm gonna create conversation around the book. But I mean, it's great. I think it's a beautiful tool.
It is, and I find it like a very trustworthy tool. As somebody that, well, my question, I haven't even asked my question yet, but my question was going to be like, who would you trust if you saw like their name on a book, blurbing it, and you would be like, okay, I'm going to read this?
I have a couple of authors that I really like, mostly female Mexican poets.
Nice.
That I really trust their taste. For example, if Marisela Guerrero says, this is an amazing book, you have to read it, most likely I'm gonna look for it. But there's this also a Mexican author that I thank her so much. I could go on a little chisme there, but I won't do it. But every time that she's mentioned something about a book, I've discovered amazing authors. Her name is Sara Uribe, and she wrote an amazing book called Antigona González. She's a great poet. She's a very intelligent feminist woman. I really like her work. And whenever she mentions authors, I discover wonderful things. I discovered Gloria Gervitz, which I recently talked about Migraciones, because of her. Because she posted something about her, and she posted something about different Argentinian poets, and so that person I really trust her taste on poetry and literature. I'm not very fond of her, but she's done things that I don't appreciate at all. But like her taste in literature, it's amazing.
Well, that's good.
How about you?
There's so many people, and there's people I don't even know that I would think that way, but then I'll see their name on a book and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm buying this. Roxane Gay is one of them. Like, she blurbs a lot of books, and when she says a book is good, it almost always is. So I trust her taste. Most writers that so you're talking about good talk. So if Mira Jacob blurbs a book, I'm going to read it because she's so good. And so this is one of the things that I absolutely love about the blurb, is that it's a way to expand the community. It's a way that writers are not competitive, but like a community. And so the idea is like, readers really love my work, and it's not a competition. You're going to also love this person. Stephen King does blurbs a ton. I don't know if I always trust his, but he does blurbs a ton as well. And it's such a beautiful thing, because he's somebody that, like, he has a lot of pull, and people are going to buy he's giving this gift to this new author, and then their book is going to be more successful just because his name is on it.
There, I think that it's an amazing way of creating community. Maybe in the Spanish market of literature, there isn't as much as that, because I would say, very gossipy, that writers older than 40 years old, with some exceptions, especially male Latin American authors or Spanish authors, think that they are the shit, and that their work is so amazing that they deserve all the attention. And sometimes for them it's very difficult to share part of the community. But I think that's part of the myth of an author has to be unreachable.
Yeah.
But at the same time, publishing houses in Latin America, big publishing houses, tend to put authors into a fight. Like if they were having a like it's very
a competition.
Important. Yes, exactly.
It's a toxic work environment.
Yeah.
But I think like it's wiser. Like if you think of the publishing market, it's wiser. What it does is it gets two of your writers, maybe more readers, because people don't just read one writer.
Exactly. And what's happening these days with independent publishing houses is that they even recognize the work of others. Like, this is not, I didn't publish this, but I think this author is amazing. And it's been published by this other place. And there's like alliances between Argentina and Mexico, Colombia, Spain. But there are small publishing houses with younger authors.
Yeah, I think, and I do see that, I think, a lot more with younger authors here, although it kind of works with everybody. I mean, not everybody. Obviously, it doesn't work with James Patterson. Normally, I don't like to put shade out, but he made me upset this week. So Whatever. But anyway, but it works in a lot of different contexts, and I just love it. There's just so many. I saw one with Sandra Cisneros the other day, blurbed a book. I don't know this book. I don't know this writer. I'm gonna want to read that book. Like, the way I judge a book by its cover, same thing. I judge a book by its blurb.
Yeah.
Good and bad. Good and bad.
Before we go on a little break, I want to share something with you. Sandra Cisneros was in Mexico a few weeks ago, and there was a series of conferences, and she was going to be part of one of the conversations, the last one of that Congress. But she did an amazing thing. Like, she recognized all the female authors that were in the conference. Like, she published tweets that, I love the work of this author. I really like this poem. We had an amazing time with this other author. And like, she shared the whole experience of being with people that recognize her as a very important voice in literature. And she gave back, like, thank you for this. It's amazing. It was really amazing.
I want to meet her so much. Like, her writing just speaks to me, and you just have the feeling that she has that vibe. But that's exactly it. Like, she uplifts other people constantly. If you follow her on social media, she's constantly like bringing other people into the sun, because she's known, and she uses her voice to bring other voices out. And I love, makes me feel like heard. Like, she's never met me, she doesn't know me, but there's like, just the way she writes makes me feel like I'm at home, you know? And I think it's part of her vibe of openness and community and creating this world for everybody. So we have to go on a break.
Yes.
On that note. You can't just bring up Sandra Cisneros like that. Okay.
You're listening to Biblio Chisme.
So, we are back. Who are we going to say hi to?
We want to say hi to Mohit, an amazing tea maker. We want to say hi to David Cruz. He says on the chat of Iconic Urbana, greetings for Angela and Mau. Interesting to know about blurbs.
Yay!
It's BLURB, right?
Yes.
With B at the end, blurb.
Yes.
Perfecto. We want to say hello to Aldo. He, as every week, he made an amazing meme for us with ideas to bookmarks. He's asking, are you ready to listen to the podcast program where talk about many books run to connect to Iconic Urbana and Biblio Chisme? And we want to say hello to Martín Méndez and Museo Colores, who are there listening and retweeting things. And we also want to say hello to Aubrey and to Male, who will listen in the future.
Yes. And we want to say hello and thank you to our producer.
Oh, yes. And Ricardo, it's in the house tonight.
Yes. We are very grateful to have his wonderful talents accompanying the Biblio Chisme.
Yes.
So, what do you have for us this week?
I
love that book.
So, I don't have necessarily a book by this author because I've read him in Spanish mostly. And I was doing some research this morning if there's any poems translated to English written by Portuguese author Fernando Pessoa. Fernando Pessoa was born today, back in 1888, long time ago. And yes, there are books published in English by him, bilingual poems. I think there's a complete works by Fernando Pessoa in English, published by Penguin House, I think. And there's so many books. What I also found that Pessoa wrote in English. He was Portuguese. He was in love with the English language. One of his persons that were living inside him loved the English language, and that person that doesn't exist was born in South Africa, and so his mother language was English. I think that it's just amazing how those things happen. But I think that his work, I wanted to talk about a little bit about Fernando Pessoa's poetry, because today is his birthday. He was a Gemini, of course. And what makes me think about the importance of talking about him is that he didn't publish very much when he was alive. He published poems, he published a couple of books, but there were a lot of poems by different people in magazines and newspapers in Portugal that had different names. And once he was dead, they started to realize that those persons never existed, and that they were all Fernando Pessoa's different voices. And I just think that it's fascinating to have a poet that had, Walt Whitman said, "I contain multitudes," and he was like a big poet of the poetry, and he was like
a big
blah blah
poet
blah.
Of the poetry.
Yes, like a big man of poetry. You have to forgive my English, but I get so emotional about Pessoa and his work. But like Pessoa really contained multitudes, and he had so much things inside on his poetic voices that he needed to write with different life stories. For example, Álvaro de Campos, which is a person that doesn't exist, it's Pessoa writes completely different than Pessoa, and has a different life from Pessoa. And I think that's amazing.
And I also think it's really incredible that Walt Whitman, also the Gemini, because the Gemini is the twins. Like, you have more than, the concept is you have more than one self.
Yes.
In your very sign. But this year, very recently, the Pessoa, a biography, came out by Richard Zenith. And I really, really want to read it because, sorry, you've been talking to me about him for years, and this biography looks so good, but also is 1,088 pages long. But I think I really want to read it. So that's not my book, but it is. So I checked it out of the library. I requested that the library buy it. I don't know how long it's going to take me, though.
I think that he's a fascinating character. I was talking about him last week on La Palabra Feroz and read some poems by him. And the thing is, he was a very, how would you say, mild person? Like, people that had contact with him, like a
mild-mannered person,
like very quiet, not extrovert, like a low voice tone. He worked on public office doing some bureaucratic job that was nothing interesting home. He just couldn't stop writing poetry and reading poetry and thinking poetry and cultural a huge universe on his personal life that I think it's just remarkable.
Yeah, like I said, I really want to read this biography. I think it's fascinating.
And
but
I'm sorry that I don't have a book, a specific book by him. But I just wanted to celebrate that it's his birthday today, and for me, it's a very important day. I was looking at my Facebook memories for today, and all the memories that I have on June 13 are related to Pessoa since I started a Facebook account. So I cannot lie that it's an important poet for me.
Yeah, I will, for our listeners who look at our Instagram, and we always have like visuals of the books that we talk about, I'll put the biography on there, even though that's not what we talked about.
Yes.
Just so you have a book.
Yes. And I would say that if you have the chance to read his poetry in Spanish, in Portuguese, or in English, do so. I think he's a very important poet. I was reading something many years ago that was talking about literature in the 20th century, and it said that Fernando Pessoa, Jorge Luis Borges, and Franz Kafka were the authors that changed literature in the 20th century. Like very academic text, very male-orientated academic text.
Clearly.
But
there's no men, there's no women in that list.
No women in that list. But I think that it was very interesting that he was considered part of the voices that changed the 20th century. And for me, that list was very strange because it was a list from an English major or something. And he mentioned an author in Spanish, an author in Portuguese, and an author in German.
Very interesting. So, but why would he be the authority?
Well, maybe he was just a major doing some research. You know, when the century was coming to an end, or when it ended, there were so many lists of the books that you have to read, the books that the authors of the 20th century, blah, 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 the movies, blah, blah, blah. So most likely, if we think of what was happening 23 years ago in the main media, it's different.
Yeah, that doesn't make it okay.
No.
And also, Pessoa wasn't even last century. He was last century.
Well, he was born in last century, but he wrote in last century, as well as Kafka and Borges. So, anyways.
Let's go on our break.
Yeah, let's go.
¿Visitaste nuestra página? Todos los días. Contenido nuevo para ti. icónicaurbana.com.
You're listening to Biblio Chisme.
We are back, my friends.
Yes,
it is time for me to talk about my book. I am so excited. That took me out of my slump of bad books. Sorry. I know I told you all that I was getting out of it. But the first book that got me out of it, that's taken me a while to read, is called Razor Blade Tears by S.A. Cosby. And it is like a thriller, I guess. I mean, it's like a thriller. It's an action book. It's so exciting. In the sense that like you're like, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? But it also has like all this wonderful, I mean, it's sad. It's very sad, but it has all this context that makes it such an engaging read. Because what happens with a lot of thrillers, or at least a lot of the ones that I read, is like it's a story and you want to know what happens next, and oh, maybe somebody's going to die, but it doesn't have a lot of like social consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like somebody's bad. Who is it? We don't know, and that's what you're trying to figure out the whole time. So, and the premise of this book is there's a gay couple and they get murdered. At the very beginning of the book, they get murdered, they get shot, like it's a professional murder, it seems like. And they're from the South, and both of their fathers are very homophobic. And they weren't close because they didn't believe in their quote unquote lifestyle. And then these two fathers get so angry that their sons were murdered that they get together to try to exact vengeance, right? Well, at first it's to try to figure out what happened because the police don't seem to be working too hard on it. But then it turns to like, we need to exact vengeance. Both of these fathers have been in prison, and one of them is black and the other one is white. And they have very different experiences, and they are like a little bit oil and water at the beginning. And it's so good. Like the way that they can, it's got so many levels, so many layers. And how do these fathers, like as they move forward through this story, like how do they process the fact that their sons have died, and how all the guilt from all the rejection that they gave them, and now they're trying to figure out what happened to them, and they're trying to make it right for them, but simultaneously like they're facing that they're part of the problem. And meanwhile there's like this huge mystery around like who actually did it. And there's a lot of violent people everywhere, and there's fights, and there's other violence, there's threats, there's kidnapping, like so much stuff is happening. This whole book, I cannot put it down. Like I think this book is so good, but more because it's exploring kind of what does this mean? Who are we in like our social relationships? And how do we connect to each other even when we don't have something in common?
Also, the title, it's very good. Like, I'm starting to wonder if you choose your books because of the amazing titles they have.
Well, I appreciate that feedback. But actually, this one I chose because one of my library friends talked about it, and I was like, oh, this sounds like something I would enjoy. Razor Blade Tears is how one of the fathers refers to how he feels when he cries about his son, like his tears are cutting his face open.
So
it's
dramatic.
Very dramatic. It's and the writing style is like very interesting. Like the way that he describes stuff is very different than it just breaks up the mold of what I'm used to reading, and he uses words that I never expect in certain places, and it's like surprising, but like, you know, when you bite into something and it has a taste you didn't expect, but it's really good. That's how this book makes me feel, where I'm just like, oh, I would have never seen that word there, but it's really nice. And I think the writing is so engaging, and the characters are very well formed, and you sit there and you're like, oh, like you can see this person in your head. Like it's just so well done. So yeah.
That's great. Nice.
That is my book.
That's amazing. Interesting. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. what's your favorite thing this week?
I have two favorite things this week. One, it's a quote by Ursula K. Le Guin.
Nice.
It says, "Love doesn't just sit there like a stone. It has to be made like bread. Remade all the time, made new." I think it's an amazing quote. And my other favorite thing this week, it's something that's going to happen in a couple days on June 15th. There's a birthday of a person that I really love and that I share a beautiful podcast with her. And I'm very happy for that. It's one of the Gemini celebrations of the important ones. So happy birthday in advance.
Thank you so much. Of course, that's my favorite thing this week.
Which you had forgotten about.
My birthday?
Yes.
I forgot my birthday?
No, it was not in your favorite things today.
What was in my favorite things?
I don't know.
Here's a secret. Sometimes I don't plan my favorite things before you ask me. But yeah, I love my birthday. I love it so much. I love I love Gemini-ness. I love this month. I love that it's Pride Month. And I enjoy celebrating my birthday so much. There's this whole terrible culture around hating aging that exists, and people here a lot of times are like, "Oh, don't remind me," or "I don't want to celebrate because it's terrible." And I'm just like, why? You get your own holiday every year that belongs only to you and other people, but mostly you in your vicinity. And it makes me just so happy. I get to exist on this earth.
I think that it's a very important thing to celebrate your existence.
Yeah.
Your own self being here.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And I will celebrate a ton and have a wonderful time.
That's amazing. Next week, which is still going to be Gemini season, I'm going to talk about a Gemini book again. Yes.
I am going to talk about a Pride book because it's also Pride Month.
Lovely.
All right, everybody. Geminis and not Geminis, have a wonderful week and happy reading.
Happy reading.
Biblio Chisme is a podcast about creating conversation around reading, satisfying curiosities we didn't know we had, and sharing this dialogue with others, hopefully with good coffee, tea, and snacks.